Andy Liu, how you doing, my brother?
Here we go. Here we go.
Can you believe it? Bob Myers is officially stepping down as the Warriors GM. We've given ourselves a few hours recording this at 7 p.m., had the day to digest, get our feelings through it. And I feel like there's two things we got to do. Part one, I just want to talk about Bob, celebrate him, all that sort of stuff. And then part two, we'll kind of get into everything else, But my question for you, more than anything, is: were you surprised?
It felt like you remember when KD the day or two before he was going to sign with the Warriors and made his announcement that he was going to sign with the Warriors. You kind of started to feel like he was going to end up as a Warrior, as unlikely it was. That's kind of what it felt like with Bob Myers. I think if you asked me a week ago, I was like, dude, there's no way. We literally did a show a week ago. Like, dude, there's no way. Then last night, yesterday, even the day before, you kind of felt like, well, dude is gone. He's pushing his announcement. He's making a whole thing about it. There's no way you do that unless you're gone, unless you're given a whole speech, which he ended up doing. If you're signing an extension, dude, like that's a PR release. You're not doing a self-indulgent hour-long show, which is what they ended up doing. So not surprising, but I mean, pretty sad. It felt like the end of it might not be the end of the Warriors, but shit, it kind of felt that way to me.
It did feel like the end of an era. It's funny. You said it felt like when they signed KD. To me, it felt like when KD left. By that, I mean, I kind of felt Bob was going to go all season. Like, all rational logic said he's out the door. But in my mind, I'm thinking he can't actually do it. Like, I was expecting a last minute change of heart and for him to return. And I'm not surprised, but it just feels weird. Like, I just thought, a week ago we would get that notification that like Bob's coming back, that sort of thing. And
because logically it doesn't make sense for him to go. No, logically it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sure Lacob went in there last night and told him that we're gonna give you whatever you want. I'm sure he did that. And he just whatever he wanted, and it is.
The rumored numbers that they're throwing at. Let's just say I believe Joey threw top dollar at him. It wasn't. Do you think it was about the money? Because to me, maybe Bob is the world's greatest swindler. I mean, he is an ex-agent, but I walked away from that going, I really don't think it's about the money. Now, do I think he might change his mind in 6 months? Maybe, but like, I genuinely believe the guy was like, he probably walked away from $100 million guaranteed in a contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got offers of well over $10 million a year, and there's no way he got a 1-year contract. So it's like, you just think about it. It's like, if he got $15 million a year type of offer, which is what is being rumored, if not higher, and I do think it might be higher for 5 years. Like, that's not it. This isn't Sam or Andy leaving their positions to take a year off. That's like life-changing money.
That is a lot. He's gonna get paid more than a lot of good players in the NBA and the new CBA. Is what he turned down because there's no limit.
He's getting offered more than Looney.
Triple Looney. Are we guessing? Are we doing the why do we think Bob left segment right now, or are we holding off on that, Sam?
I mean, well, let's start there. Do you think? I just want to say this. Do you take him at his face value, that it wasn't about the money, that it was deeper than just like, Joe offered me 8 and I want 10, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I believe that. Because if it was 10, Joe would have gave him 10. If it was 20, Joe would have given him 20. I'm sure there was no realistic limit that Lacob wouldn't give him. I believe all that. My take watching that press conference, like, dude, I'm sure there was like 20 things that made him want to not work as a Warriors GM anymore. Dude, I think the biggest thing is he don't work for Joe Lacob. That's just what I think, dude. He just didn't want to work for him anymore, man. Like, he couldn't do 5 more years, which I'm sure he likes him. I'm sure they get along. They did a presser together. But did you watch some of the jokes they were making? Body language, Andy. You know what I mean? Like, Joe was saying some stuff where he just was like, "Oh, we're gonna work you to the last day," and Bob's like, he's smiling, he's laughing, and then he looks over, he's like, "What the fuck?" And Bob's makes a joke like, "I've never seen you compliment me that much before," and you kind of just watch that and you're just like, it's not that, right? It's not. I'm not basing it off of just that, but he didn't want to work for him anymore. That's what I think. Not for
There
5 years. That's a great picture.
And I'm putting this picture if you're watching on YouTube. There's that moment where Joe is talking about working. It's like, well, he's still here till the 30th. I'm gonna get every day out of him. And Joe's just like makes that face where he's just like, you guys get what I deal with on a daily basis. That's the indirect body language he was saying. He's just like, love how motivated this guy is. I like the people I work with, but like, you deal with this 3 a.m. text every day for a decade. Tell me how you feel.
Joe said the biggest thing that he's gonna miss is not talking to Bob 5 to 20 times, 5 to 20, which is like, all right, Joe. Like, you obviously
that's such a jump. Yeah, it's like, yeah, dude, I like text them 1, 2, 48 times a day. It's just what.
I mean, it's definitely not 20. It's definitely more, like you said, it's definitely more like 50. But there's no way Bob likes that. It's just, to me, that was the biggest reason, Sam. It was just, there's no real amount of money that you can give me that I am going to want to work here for 5 more years. He just couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. And I'm sure he's not actually turning down. Let's say it's 15. But he's not actually turning down 15 a year because he could probably get 10 somewhere else doing something else, right? So it's not really taking 15 mil off the table. So I think that's it.
I get what you're saying. You're saying if Bob, first off, he's going to get job offers that pay him a lucrative amount of money when he's ready to work, period, right? So, like, it's not like it's, 12 million for the Warriors or 90K as a Salesforce administrator, like, it's not like that's like the trade-off, right? It's like but it takes a lot of confidence in yourself to walk away from that level of money and that level of offer. By the way, if you want to ask questions, you can always throw them in the chat. We'll get to them when it's time. Yeah, I mean, I think he's burnt out. My big thing is he's saying he wants to take time. He wants to do other stuff. He talked about how he hasn't taken time off ever in his life. I finished college and I started, working and doing law school at night. And then I became an agent. And then I worked for the Warriors. And, he didn't need to say it, but he's 48 years old. I just think he's, a little midlife crisis. A little like, dude, I've killed myself for 25 years. I need space. That's kind of like the vibe I got a little there. It takes, maybe that's why he's as wanted as he is in general, because I have a very hard time seeing other executives in any sport having kind of the temerity or just stepping away from it when you're kind of, we can talk about what we think of Bob, but the league thinks he's one of the 2 or 3 best. He can have any job he wants, basically, to not care and walk away. It's like, it takes a very, it's different. I'll put that.
It's fascinating. He doesn't need my respect. He didn't give a shit about me, but I respect that a lot. It's so cool. I love Bob. He's one of my favorite guys in the organization. I definitely love him more than I do Steve Kerr. Even some of the player, he just, when he gave that monologue, the first 10 minutes or so, and he just went down every single player. Just every single player he starts talking about. He brings up guys that you've never even heard of. Talks about Rick Wells. Talk about And then he doesn't even get to the players until he's like 8 minutes in and starts talking about his family. He starts tearing up talking about his wife, which, maybe we thought that he would start crying earlier. He probably should have started crying when he started crying about Steph. That really would have played very well for us. But he talked about KD, dude. Like, he talked about KD. That was cool. I don't. You talked about, like, you don't see any GMs doing like walking away. I don't see any GMs talk like Bob Myers. he talks like he's in a movie half the time, which but it feels genuine. It doesn't feel like the LeBron way of talking like he's in a movie. Like, when LeBron talks, it's always fake. You just know it's fake. Everything he does is fake. But when Bob talks, it's like, oh, he actually means what he says 99% of the time. So I don't know. It felt like he's genuinely like, I'm done with this. I cannot do this anymore. Not for another 5 years. And what do you think he's going to do? He's going to go sit on a beach in the Hamptons? Nah, he wouldn't do it. He Cancun, maybe. He's going to be out of the States.
My prediction is he does a little media. He does a little tech summit, keynote speaker tour, get paid six figures for a couple hours of motivation.
Good game.
And a lot of time to myself in between. That's my short term. That's my assumption of what he's going to do over the next, let's say, 6 months.
Yeah, at least like maybe a year. From one of the comments here, I got to read this out. This is great. From Bag Broke. He said about Bob Meyer. He said, that's true. All the other GMs are so analytical and human, and Bob cries in the shower. I mean, it's perfect. It's who he is. It's who he is.
Joe Lacob talked about the humanity of Bob Myers, and I thought that was perfect because we'll talk about Joe later in the show, and I do think he's an excellent owner, and he does a lot of things that you want. And as a born and raised Oakland A's fan, like, I promise you, perspective on the ownership stuff it can be a lot worse. He recognizes, like, he doesn't have the human touch. Bob, it's not who he is. Like, he knows he needs someone like Bob to translate his, like, insane venture appetite, so everyone doesn't just hate him for eternity. And I think that's that's an invaluable skill. Like, Bob, more than anything, has the ability to connect and get everyone on the same page. Honestly, find me another franchise in the NBA who's kept their main people together for a decade. That's the proof is in the pudding. We can argue about draft picks, and he made fun of the fact that he's bad at them. Sure. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Andre Iguodala, who they even traded for cap reasons and brought back. No other team has that level of consistency tied in. No other, I don't think we're going to see an NBA team who can keep their core together for a decade in our lifetime. Not with the way the league's trained. Honestly, not with the way players act either. Could you see any other team sticking together that long? Like, it's few and far between. And Bob is a very important part of that. Like, you can tell. You saw Steph Curry's Instagram posts. You saw. I've never seen Joe Lacob. Like, Joe seemed angry and shocked, and also he really wanted to keep. I think it was sincere. I don't think he forced Bob out. I think he's mad that he lost Bob. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so all of that speaks to, again, we can, maybe it would be great if he didn't pick Wiseman. It would have been great if he did certain things, but it's like his value is much deeper than just
he did some stuff that didn't work out. Shit. I mean, that's everyone. It's every GM in the existence of all sports and everything. Mm-hmm. Thought the one anecdote he talked about with Steph was cool because he said he sat down with Steph and then talked, and he kind of told Steph what he was going to do, and he told Steph, hey, it doesn't feel like you're trying to sell me on coming back, which to me, I think is the perfect anecdote for the leader that Steph is and who Bob is, because Steph, he knew. Steph was like, dude, I'm not going to convince you. Like, there's nothing I can say to convince you now in the 11th hour for you to come back. He knew this was never about getting 16 million versus 13 million or whatever. It's something somebody say that he was,
or like I needed Steph to tell me he loved me or something
yeah,
like that.
it wasn't that. You know, Bob is not an insecure person like that, right? So it wasn't about.
Yeah.
That's a good one, by the way. That's because there are people like that. But it always felt like, you know, all of like 90% of this is always Steph. It's always going to be Steph, how great he is, like pulling people together. But dude, like Bob gets people to buy in Draymond. He is the Draymond whisperer. He got Draymond to buy in.
His joke about he said like I'll come back, Mike, if you need me to help you with Draymond. Like just recognizing like yeah. I mean like
is who's gonna tell Draymond that he's not getting 25 million a year? who's gonna tell
who's telling Clay, you know? Like I mean like
yeah, right.
Yeah, but like who else someone said to me, you know, around Draymond, they're like, you know, he knows that he can trust Bob to give him a fair offer. And it's like, it just kind of lets you know, like, you know, there's a lot of like, you know, you expect owners to act a certain way. You expect coaches to act a certain way. But like, there's this like intrinsic trust that like Bob will get in there and like mediate. And when he tells you this is the most, you're like, you know what? I don't think he's playing me. I don't think he's trying to play me. And I can get an extra 10% out of him. I think he's being honest. And that's, yeah, that's kind of how you keep people bought in and not thinking, you know, like everyone's at a contentious side against him, right?
When Joe Lacob tries to give Steph a contract extension a few years back under the max, how do you think came in there and fixed it? Who do you think came in there and made it so that Steph wouldn't say, dude, what? Send me to LA.
This isn't worth, Joe, this isn't worth nickel and diming to get a 2% better deal. Like you're gonna screw things up far worse, even though you're willing to pay the dollar. Like it's just, you know, exactly. It's someone who can come in and just be like, you're not thinking about this. Just trust me, you know?
No.
So,
and I mean, Dunleavy, I'm sure, is smart enough to realize that he can say it, but it's another thing for players to buy into what you're actually saying. And the players always bought into what Bob Myers was saying versus anyone else.
Is there another GM in the league that their players adore them? You know, like you brought it up. Who do you think the players care more about? Not that it's an either or thing, Bob or Steve. On some level, it feels like they trust Bob a little more, and you know, it's a different role, but like he's the family therapist or something.
More you go down the line, it's like, oh, he doesn't get paid enough, which is funny because I got a few people throwing out hypotheticals about Steve doing the Brad Stevens. You know what I mean? Like just saying, you know, I want to be around this team. But you know, maybe I'll be a GM instead. So I don't know, they threw that out there, but it's like Steve and Bob were best friends. It's kind of funny. And that was thrown out there, Sam. You don't think so? You don't think that's
he already been a GM. He's already said he
was bad. And he was bad.
And he said he hates it. Like that's the bigger thing for me.
Long time ago.
I mean, that's fair. Maybe his perspective's changed after being on the road for a decade. You know, like things look different when you're doing a red eye between Memphis and Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? Where you're just like, man, maybe the GM gig's better, where I can just fly in and then go sleep in my bed at night.
I can see his kids. Anyway, just throwing that out there. It's not worth talking. It's just throwing that out there. You never know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had another question on the Bob Myers thing, and then I want to talk about like, I don't know, man. Like we should celebrate him a little bit before we move to the other stuff, which will dominate the offseason. Do you believe Bob is done with basketball?
There is absolutely no chance. Actually, Joe Lacob brought this up about like, it's funny to me that Joe brought up like 3 separate times. Like, I don't know what he's doing. He might have something else that he wants to do. And I was just laughing. I was like, dude, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I feel like Joe, I truly believe Joe thought he was going to sell him at the end. He thought like Bob's going through it. It's okay. End of the day, I'm gonna win, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, like that sort of thing.
yeah.
And then we found out this morning he was like, "What?" Like I actually believe that he didn't know until this morning because
Every
his actions were he was way too obvious on the face.
everybody around him told Joe that, hey, Bob's gone, and Joe's just like, no, 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 I got
Get
this.
me
You know what I mean?
get me in a room with him. We'll hash
Yep.
it out over a drink. It'll be done. That sort of
Do
thing,
you have
right?
Stewie? I got Stewie. I got Stewie. I got him. Don't worry about it. I got him.
Exactly.
Joe's like, I got him. It's not every Kirk sitting there like that. It's not happening. Bob's gone. It's not. So Joe doesn't know what he's gonna do. I think Bob probably doesn't know, but you'd have to imagine that someone like him that's been doing this for 20, 30, 40. I mean, he's played at UCLA, dude. Like, he's been around basketball forever. He's not just suddenly gonna walk away. Usually, someone, if that happens to someone, they've gone through like a massive change, like obviously knock on wood, but like somebody dies or some crazy, something really bad, right? Where someone's just like, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. That doesn't seem like it's happened to Bob. I think he just, like you said, dude, just give me like 8 months and I'm going to be managing the Clippers with Jerry West. Like, it's going to be something
honestly,
like that.
I think I think it's going to be the classic. He takes time away. He does media. He's on ESPN. He's sitting next to Windhorse and Richard Jefferson.
Oh God.
It's fun for a day. And, 3 weeks later, he's like, dude, this sucks. And, he gets that itch because it's just different when you're in the trenches and doing that sort of thing versus like, opining like you and me, honestly. So, and I think he's going to get that itch. And I honestly think he'll get that itch quicker.
Oh, wow.
Than he probably does. I think in his mind, he thinks I'm going to take time off and like, figure it out, that sort of thing. But like, yeah, I kind of, my gut instinct is he's an executive next year. One year off is my gut instinct. And it may be he comes back to the Warriors as like a senior consultant type of thing.
Just going to say, yeah.
Or he's the 800th million person Ballmer throws $1 bazillion at, So
Joe actually brings it up. He says, I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna keep asking you to come because I mean, Joe's been around for so long. He's like 70 years old, dude. Like, he knows that Bob. He knows what you just said is gonna be true. He knows that Bob's gonna sit there 6 months.
Bob's 48. He's gonna enjoy himself for a moment, and then he's gonna be like, bro, I'm not 78. I'm not, I'm not at the end of the road. I need something to do. I can't just sit on the couch and look at like new furniture spreads for how we're going to remodel the kitchen.
He is going to lose it the moment that his wife comes in and starts having him pick out different furniture. He's like, nah, you know what? I'm good. Joe yelling at me, I actually like that. I'm good with that.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, oh, I'm not the boss here either. I got a wife. I got 3 daughters. I'm lowest on the totem. I'm below Kent in the house.
3 daughters kills me when he said that.
It's just me. It's just me taking orders all day.
He starts losing his hair after he's done being a GM, and you're like, wow, it's actually more stressful to just live at.
Great point. Shout out. Amazing hair at 48. Amazing hair.
Possible. How's that? It's just a stress that he's been under. How is that possible?
You would think with stress it would he'd either lose it or go gray, but it's a complete opposite.
It makes no sense.
You think he dyes it?
No way. No way. I just don't see it. I don't see it. It feels like like Steve Kerr looks more like a normal, like that guy's stressed out. He's got white going.
He's got a lot of responsibility. It catches up to him. Yeah, exactly.
I'm below Kent. That's great.
Yeah, the chat says no chance he dyes his hair. I'm inclined to agree. What if we find out Bob is just a crazy sociopath and he just knows how to play us more than anyone?
Well, he would be the greatest because you hear from external people and internal people that he is genuinely a great dude. I mean, like you hear that stuff about Steve Kerr too, but Bob's and Steph. I think those 3 guys are kind of like externally, internally. You rarely ever hear a bad thing about them as humans. character
Yeah.
stuff
Like
about those three guys.
okay, it goes on saying Draymond, great dude. People like him, but it's like, but he can run hot. It's like, oh no, shit, right? Like that's right. It's like,
Yeah.
or Jerry West, honestly, like even a worse reputation in terms of like, just graining on you, grating on you, that sort of thing. So
yeah. Kind of like a Joe Lacob, right? I think those guys where it's like a good generally they're good, but there is a tier where it's the Bob Myers tier, the Steph
you want it as a fan. Your perspective might be different if it's your day to day. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. And I don't mean it as a bad thing or anything. It's just like, I don't think anyone wants their boss texting them 25 times a day. Dude,
all right,
imagine getting texts about you. It's like, should we trade for Dario Saric? And it's like 3:15 in the morning, and your toddler has kept you up, and you're like, not right now.
Let me tell you what. Joe might have been right about Dario Saric. That text, they did need a Dario Saric. I do like me a Dario Saric, but let's talk about favorite moments. Let's off the Bob stuff. Yeah.
Let's get to that. Yeah. So we got so I feel like there's 3 big transactions that define Bob. So I'm gonna lay these out here because it's more than just being a GM, but there's 3 that really like Bob. The Iguodala trade. They had no cap space. He found a way to maneuver to get Iguodala, and to me, that was the first moment I'm like, oh. The Warriors never do that shit. The Warriors previous to this would not be the team who got a free agent. They're the team who overpays for Corey Maggette, like that sort of thing. So that's a big one for me. The second one goes without saying. Kevin Durant. what was the line? You might win a ring without us. We'll probably win one too. But how many can we win together? I mean, that is to look at one of the greatest players of all time. It's a swindler move right there.
Ballsy. And Myers said KD called him when he saw the news. Like that's who Bob is.
I mean, I would expect to hear Bob's name in the rumors to be the Phoenix GM. We're obviously assuming the Clippers because Ballmer loves to just buy anything he can expensive wise, but like I wouldn't count Phoenix out either. KD still adores him. You think KD loves anyone else in the Warriors?
Definitely not Steve. What's the third one?
Third one is when KD left, pulling off the D'Lo sign and trade so he could make the Wiggins and the number 7 pick sign and trade. And that was probably his most impressive because that's not obvious. First off, overpaying D'Lo, Loki just did that with Jordan Poole, but overpaying D'Lo,
that's some shit I would.
I'm sitting here, I'm going, I don't know about that one, and then trading him for Wiggins, who's even more embarrassing at the time, so embarrassing that they had to throw in a draft pick to sweeten the deal, and then. Like Wiggins is really good now. Like that whole sequence was just. I think every organization wants a GM who can find a player on another team who is a laughingstock and not just. I mean, like that's the job figuring out what other people don't see. Everyone knows Kevin Durant's great. The job is figuring out the D'Lo Wiggins thing.
That's the move. If Bob's never gonna have to write a resume like you and I to apply for jobs. Then he doesn't have to give him a sheet.
You don't think he's posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, he doesn't have to go to Indeed. Promo code like yours to do any of that. But if he were to do that, the number one line on his resume would be, so KD left. I turned that into D'Angelo Russell, who we didn't even like, and then I turned that 6 months later into Andrew Wiggins, who nobody liked, and Jonathan Kuminga, who I think that's going to end up being, could end up being pretty sweet, and then a championship. So I think that's the one because, like you said, Kevin Durant there was a lot of people with that. There was a lot of people. Steph was convincing him. KD wanted to be here. And then the Andre one, Andre wanted to be a Golden State Warrior. So it wasn't like now the move itself was complex. I mean, we heard so much about Bob like not sleeping for 3 days, remember all that stuff. So like it was really hard to get through, but that's like doing a negotiation, a sale when, you're at the finish line, you just need to hammer out 80,000 fine print things and you're just going to have to work through that, but it's going to happen. The D'Lo Wiggins ones was I hated the D'Lo move and then I hated the Wiggins move. Most people did.
Both were like ballsy gambles. And
Sure.
And they took a moment too. Like he bet big that Steph, Kerr, the culture, what they're trying to build would bring the player out of Wiggins that, people thought he could be in the draft, but like for the first 6 years of his career, he wasn't, right? Like he was terrible. It was kind of a losing player. Yeah, I mean, like I don't even think it's a question which of those moves is the most impressive, but it does show like, 3 different moves. The grinder, get the Iguodala thing done, even though there's not a path to get it done. That's just outworking anyone. There's the rings on the table, like big balls move, KD move. And then there's the actual, like, having the foresight to see things that other people don't see, which was the D'Lo Wiggins one. And,
they all led to championships, by the way. 1, 2, and 1. So 4. They led to 4 championships.
Exactly. Each one led to a championship. They do not win a championship without Andre Iguodala, as we all know. They don't win back-to-back, and they should have three-peated if not for health luck without KD. And then they don't get back to the mountaintop without Wiggins. They needed a young, athletic, small forward who fit their system, and he was. Yeah. I mean, look, man, you watched Game 7. I think Jaylen Brown's more talented than Wiggins, but you can't just slot him into that. Like, it's not as simple as that. Like Wiggins, over the course of 2 years with the Warriors, not only figured it out, but he figured out how to perfectly accentuate the Warriors,
Yeah, I saw trade offers for Wiggins, Poole, or Wiggins Kuminga in the first. I'm like, dude, Are you serious for Jaylen Brown? I'm like, I do that for Tatum, but not for the guy that can't. Anyway, yeah, you're right. So that's a good way to put all 3 moves right into those buckets. It's really good. Gonna miss him.
I'm gonna miss Bob. I'll let you end the Bob segment before we get to the next one, but like, it's just, you don't see. I feel like he was the grounding force in like what is an organization where, like, Joe Lacob is as ruthless as it gets. Athletes by nature are ruthless because they want to win games. He's like the dude who, it's the human touch. I don't know. It's cliche. I think it's cliche, but
it is. I do think what makes the Warriors, it is slowly eroding. Right. So Bob's gone, and then Steve's going to be maybe gone. I mean, Steph's going to retire at some point, and Draymond and Clay, who knows what this?
They got another 10 years. Calm down.
Yeah, Steph does. But I think this felt like the first move where it's like, yeah, they're going to end up maybe just being like any other organization at some point. Lacob talks about like he's going to want to win no matter of stuff. And it's like, nah, dude, like you're going to end up just being like another organization where, guys don't really work together. The players either have all the say, or it's kind of like you just have Sam Presti who just trades everyone for anything every couple of years and resets it. Like it's just going to end up being like that versus who we've seen, which is 4 championships, 8 years, one of the top 5 players of all time. Like that's, to me, it's sad because it feels like that's ending. Maybe not next year, maybe not the year after that, but definitely in the next 4 or 5 seasons. And it always was, but this is the first domino. Yeah, that's why it's sad.
Yeah.
All right.
That's definitely how it feels. Okay. Well, I feel like there's 2 parts to this story. One, Bob Myers deserved space for us to discuss him. Now, there's even more interesting stuff. AAA in the chat says Bob leaving says he doesn't think the core has it in them anymore. Now, I don't agree with that, but my overarching theme on the Joe Lacob portion of the press conference was one, he can't hide the fact he's shocked Bob left, and he can't hide the fact he lost. Like, but the second one was that dude was trying to, I think he was angry. I think he was conveying confidence. That dude is, if you think Joe Lacob doesn't want to win, like, now, does it mean he makes the right decision? Not saying that, but I will never question that dude's desire to win. You know what I'm saying?
He's a maniac, dude. He's a maniac. He's always selling. He feels like he got up on stage and he had to tell us, like, no matter what, all we give a shit about is when it's like, Joe, we know that. We know that, dude. We know that. Just let us know if Kirk's going to be the GM or not. I think you like it a lot better than I do. I find him a little grating, which is, again, why I think Bob left. But it's a little like, okay, just we get it. We know you want to win. We've heard it. The podcast is named Light Years After You. You know what I mean? Like we get it, but it's a lot. I don't know if I liked it that much, Sam. So I feel like
you didn't enjoy him calling Bob Myers his fifth son or whatever he did?
And
felt a little condescending. He is 20 years older. Oh.
I have 4 kids, and I've said this before. I actually consider Bob my 5th. It's really hard to see your son, because that's what I kind of feel like this is. Leave and go off to do something else. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I understand it, because I don't.
Of course,
it's not inside. It's not in me to do that. I'm so competitive, and I know he is too. It's a really hard thing for me to understand why, but it's really not for me to understand why.
I mean, first off, we can both agree that dude's an open book. Joe Lacob is an open book. I don't disagree with you. He's grating. He's not easy to work for. Nothing he ever shows publicly makes me think like that seems like an easy boss, like that sort of thing. I just think from a reality standpoint, I would rather have the top guy, the guy who ultimately controls how much money they spend, how many resources they spend, be too crazy in that direction than the opposite direction. You're always shooting for somewhere in the middle, but like that's not tends to be how it works. And I think maybe Bob walking away makes him think about it a little bit. I kind of tend to think a 67-year-old man can't really change that much. I mean, I'm 30 years younger and I'm probably never changing. So it's like, why do I expect someone 30 years my senior to change in that capacity? Right. Like it's, at a certain point, your character is who you are. You just try to like, be more self-aware, but
put people around you like Bob to kind of curtail that. You're kind of throwing the point out there. Maybe this gives him some type of, realization. I mean, like it's kind of like the Klay Thompson stuff, where it's like, dude, like at some point you're gonna have to come in better shape and maybe curtail the shot selection. You look crazy with some of the shots you take, right? And we'll see if Klay changes. I mean, he's only like 32, but like that's like that he might not change because 32, like he might.
Yeah, but he lost like 2.5 years, so he's like really like 30.
He's like I mean, his mental capacity. I mean, you could argue maybe 22. Klay is, but in a good way, and not in a bad way. In a good way, just he's young.
He
at heart,
hoops
right?
like Andy and Sam at a bar at 22, but that's a different conversation.
It's worked for him for a long time, but maybe now he's gotta figure this out. And maybe the same with Joe, whoever they end up having next, or maybe Joe is Mattson. Maybe he just needs someone as like a front guy. You know what I mean? Maybe he just Dunleavy just sits there and just says yes, right? Like maybe it's that, right? Because I think
I have enough idea. I don't need more ideas in my head.
I don't need more. I know everything. I know everything. So
just go get me Wiseman.
Which is, to me, who is the GM is going to be huge. It's not going to be Kirk because I think you can't do that. I think Joe's aware enough you can't do that. You can't make your son the GM.
I don't think Kirk wants to be put in that position either. Not that like it is, but like, yeah, to your point, I think it's
Kirk's not Kendall. I'll tell you that.
No, he's not.
He's not Kendall.
I seen that guy set screens. Kendall Roy could never. I'm nothing. I'm very much so, and also, as fun as those analogies are, it's a little unfair. What I was gonna say though is, I do think for Warrior fans, it's probably a good thing Joe reacted the way he did. I get the feeling he's going to be probably more aggressive this offseason than he might have been if Bob stayed. The whole vibe I got from him was, oh, people think I'm not going to win without Bob. I will show you. I will show you that I can do. Like does that dude have a chip on his shoulder, in your opinion, Andy?
Yeah, is that a good thing though? I mean, is that because I genuinely don't know.
It's better than complacency, but there is a point where, like let's play the audio right now. It's better than complacency. Complacency is my sad Oakland A's, Yes. So you don't want to be in that zone, but there is a point where you're too aggressive. And then you shoot your load in the wrong direction. So
restrictive rules that may not be directly aimed at you guys, but will impact you guys pretty heavily. How do you view that changing or not changing your future plans on roster?
I'm not going to comment on the roster because very much because the truth is we have a lot of work to do, obviously, and we have time. We have until the draft and free agency, which is a month away or so. So we're going to win no matter what. I don't care what the rules are. We are going to figure out a way to do it. That's what good organizations do. They figure out a way to win the game. And our game is to win games and to win championships. And when we came here, this ownership group 13 years ago, we made a ridiculous proclamation about winning within 5 years. And of course, somehow we managed to do it. All of us, players and everybody involved. And we've continued to win. And look, the rules will change in the game, but we'll continue to do that. We're going to work really hard to do it. And I think we have really smart people and we'll do it.
I mean, it reminds me of when they lost the 16 finals and he's yelling at, it might've been Ethan or it might've been Marcus or TK. We will be very aggressive. We're coming back from this. We're like, they lost the finals in game 7. It was a little, embarrassing. Like that dude does not like to lose. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob Myers' expression there was priceless. He's just kind of trying not to show anything, and then at the end there, he's kind of zoning out, which tells me he's seen this speech before. He's seen this this rant from no Joey before.
over under 1,000 times.
Not surprising. All of us did this together. I don't doubt that he wants to win. I don't doubt that he wants to spend money to win. I don't doubt any of those things. I doubt who's going to get it done. I doubt who is he going to put in the position to. Yeah, that's my fear. I mean, I think everyone has that. I mean, I would have doubted that even if Bob was still the GM, right? Maybe less doubt, but that's the fear now is who the hell is going to run this ship, because this is the biggest offseason left in this dynasty, right? You said the 3 moves. Those were the 3 biggest offseasons so far. Those, the Andre, the KD, the D'Lo one, they all worked out. Now you've got this 4th one, I think, is going to be the biggest one, because this is going to be the one that is the end of Steph's career, that will dictate how the end of Steph's career will go.
Yeah.
Who the hell is going to make the decisions?
I mean, so we can just say it. Like, everyone is assuming they're not going to hire from externally. Like, Daryl Morey's not coming in, I don't know why that's the name I always go to, but like obviously everyone knows who he is, right? You know, it's gonna probably be Dunleavy, and Kirk will be elevated. And honestly, it's the same people who've been the voices of the Warriors room, just without Bob being above them, you know, which is we'll see how that works. I mean, we didn't talk about this one earlier, but he said this about Mike Dunleavy. He said Bob Myers said he almost left 4 years ago. So 2019, 4 years ago, I thought, can I keep doing this? And how can I keep doing this? I talked to Joe. He said, what do you need? We brought Mike in. And he went into a long soliloquy about how, that's kind of his guy. He trusts Mike. They have a great working relationship. It's someone, honestly, probably he feels he could just be more honest with and doesn't have to play internal politics, right? Like, you understand how that works. And he kind of made a pitch for Mike to take over, and everyone's assuming Dunleavy's going to be the guy who takes over, but like, it's still different. It's not the same. You know what I mean?
Do you like that? I mean, like, do you have thoughts around? I mean, you know a lot more than me about it. Like, I don't know anything about Mike Dunleavy outside of,
I mean, I can never get over the fact that there's not a player I hated more than Dunleavy. Right. And I think it's hilarious. And it's not even his fault. He was just like the manifestation of the shitty era Warriors, you know?
Correct. Oh.
They had a lot of shitty players, but Mike got all the brunt of it in my
high draft pick. Heart. Easy to hate. I mean, he ended up being a basketball player.
And he talked shit to the fans. Remember that? Yep. He kind of told the fans, like, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, he's not wrong. It's not his fault the owner was trash. But you still don't say that, buddy. You know? Anyway, that's whatever. He was 23. He was losing by 20 every night. I get the frustration. Not everyone's a Monte Ellis going up there saying he's better than LeBron. I don't know. I feel like the Bob sales pitch helps. I feel like it can go two ways. Let me put it this way. Way one is, you remember how like Stevens took over for Ainge and people weren't really sure what that meant, but he actually made a bunch of moves that helped the Celtics move forward. And I know they didn't get anywhere, but it's not like they want anything under Ainge anyway. They still got better, you know? Like, in context, they got better. Or it could be the Bobby Evans replacing Brian Sabian, where they're like playing off the credibility of the previous guy, where you're like, this is my guy. Like, it's basically the same thing, you know? And then, you look at it 2 years later, you're like, yeah, but it's not, because they're in last place. So not to go to either extreme, but like, I don't know. They're not going to go externally. So I just want to see how it plays out, honestly.
Do you think they should go externally?
No. I feel pretty strongly about this. You spent a decade building the best front office, having all these smart people you pay. You kind of have to hire internally. It sends such a shitty message if you go externally on them, in my opinion. Like, imagine working there and feeling that. Now, if you hire internally and they suck, then you can go externally. But I feel like in the short term, you have to at least give your guys a chance to prove that they can be the next guy.
It feels like Mike Dunleavy. Is he even internal? He kind of just popped up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's the guy, and he's never really had the experience. So like, I don't feel too strongly. Now, if you told me that he's just the Tom of the organization, and he's just kind of like the yes man, and Kirk is really running the show, and like Kirk has been running a lot of that show for a lot. It's not like Bob Myers was sitting there making all the decisions, right? So like, I could be sold on that part, and there's obviously a bunch of other names. It's not just those guys. Maybe throwing Travis Schlenk. I mean, he kind of got demoted / kind of moved upwards, sideways, whatever it is. So maybe you bring him back. He's someone that did good work for the Warriors. But I think I'm kind of with you. If you're going to hire, who's the guy that just got hired by the Wizards? Michael Winger, right? Who ended up like, he's
Clippers, yeah. Or former Clippers guy, yes.
Former Clipper, yeah, former Clipper. Okay, I was like, yeah. So he's been around a lot. He's very sharp. He's one of those up and coming guys, kind of like when Bob was hired. If you're going to go with one of those guys, just just the dynasty's over, right? Just get Steph out of there. Like, just start over. If you're gonna hire one of those guys, start over, clean slate. Don't give him this kind of half cooked kind of thing that the Warriors have right now. So to me, I'm guess I'm saying I kind of agree with you. It's just like, if you're gonna go try to keep this going, just do it with the guys that have been there. If you're gonna bring someone new in, just start tanking.
What is this to you? What does this mean for the old guard, the guys who Steph is Steph. He's going to retire a Warrior unless he demands out. They're not moving him.
Yeah.
But Clay and Draymond, what do you think it means for those guys?
So this is the scary part, is who's going to have the conversations with those guys. It's not like Bob's gone. It's not like he's turning off his phone and can't reach him. But who's going to sit there and have the conversation with Draymond and Clay about contracts? That's the biggest thing. We could talk about shot selection with Clay and then like Draymond stop punching people or whatever. But dude, it's contracts, man. Who's going to talk to these guys about contracts? That's the scariest part. If you want to keep them, but it sounds like Joe wanted to keep him, so it tells me that Joe probably wants to keep Draymond and Clay, right? So if he
it doesn't seem like he wants to give away talent for the sake of it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, he probably doesn't want to trade Jordan Poole either. I mean, somebody's gonna have to convince him to do it. Which who's gonna do that now? Who's gonna convince him that he has to trade Jordan Poole to actually try to win again? But who's gonna do any of those things, Sam? I don't know. That's the scary part, and that's not just Draymond and Clay. That's veterans. That's who's gonna get Steph bought in if they end up moving off of Poole, because maybe Steph's like, yo, we want him to stay. Who's gonna get Steph bought in? I don't know. I don't know the answers to any of those.
I mean, let's put it this way. I can theorize as much as I want, but it's uncharted waters. That's what it is for the Warriors. It's uncharted waters. They've always had the Bob Myers consistency. The consistency's gone right now. He's stepping away, you know? There's a Joe Lacob quote. It doesn't matter if they're here or not. There's a lot of pressure. Our job is to win championships, period. And I'm going to expect that. We're going to expect that this year, next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. There's no point in doing this unless you're not trying to win a championship. No point. On the one hand, agreed, bro. Shout out. I like it. On the other hand, I just think he's trying to project a level of confidence when people are like a little, just I don't know. You just don't know. Like the confident, like whether you think Bob is the greatest talent value or the worst or somewhere in the middle, like you knew what to expect from him. That's for sure.
It's like the Warriors end up this offseason doing something amazing. Maybe they end up trading Poole for some great role players to Orlando, and they get some good role guys. I mean, again, Bob was a guy. This team ended up signing Belly and all those guys that ended up working out. Otto Porter, those guys, right? But then last season it didn't work out, right? And whose fault is that? I don't know. I feel like we tend to blame Joe when that happens. Correct. And then we give the credit to Bob, and it's like nobody really knows who's maybe Joe was the guy that was big on Otto Porter. We don't know. So yeah,
maybe Kirk was the one saying we gotta get Otto.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
Right.
That sort of thing. It's like it's a little more nuanced than you usually expect. So
Steve saying no to half the people that the Warriors bring to him because Steve's like, we won't play him, right? And then Steve doesn't play the young guys, So you can always blame Steve too. Steve, it is interesting because Steve has I think just as much power as a lot of people in their front office, but he escapes blame for the moves because he's just a coach. But
just a coach. Just a coach who played Anthony Lamb all season over the guys we drafted in the lottery. Just a coach. Anyway.
Hey, hold on. Before we get out of there. Before we get to calls, before we get to the goons. Steve Kerr, 1 more year left on the contract. What happens to him? Your take.
That's interesting. My gut take before the Bob Myers news was he's going to get extended until Steph is I don't know if he's going to coach beyond Steph, but I think they're kind of a package deal. If that makes sense. Yeah. And now I don't know. It's just it's all an unknown. I keep going back to this. part of me thinks Joe Lacob's going to be super motivated because it feels like a shot to his ego, but I don't know what that means in terms of like, does that mean he makes the right decision or does that mean he throws $250 million at Jaylen Brown? Like something like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can go either direction on that one. And we're gonna have to see it. Like I'm still processing the way I feel on all this stuff.
All right. To the Goons. I think Steve stays. He's not going anywhere. But let's go to the Goons.
I would be shocked if he goes anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. So let's get to it. Oh, Mr. Lau.
It's crazy, man. You know who's the first person that probably texted Bob as soon as he made his announcement? Anthony Lamb. He was like, bro, thank you so much, man. You made my fucking season lit, man. Thank you so much, man. Can I get your mailing address? I gotta send you a Lightyear shirt. Yeah, man. What's going on, boys? I see we got different time zones here. We're in the off season.
We are. How do you feel about this? What are your thoughts on Bob stepping away? Did you think he was going to?
I felt to address that, I think he was gone. It was kind of noticeable. I thought honestly he was gone after the whole KD got hurt thing. When like KD got hurt, because when you guys were talking about memorable Bob Myers moments, you guys were talking about the transactional version, but for me, my top 3 moments for Bob was when Clay got hurt, when KD got hurt, and then that season when like Steph broke his hand and he kind of had to navigate the season with like our team full of just anybody. So I think those were some critical moments where it was like the humanity of Bob. So in 2019, I thought he was gone because he was getting killed in the media for like letting KD play. Yeah, so I thought that like they were gonna.
Oh, that's right. They were gonna sue Bob. They're gonna sue Bob.
That was fucking bullshit.
And then like Bob had to shed a bunch of tears and like man. And then KD had to post a pic of him in like the hospital bed with the tubes. That was crazy.
I remember that. That was we didn't bring that. I'm glad you brought it up, Elau. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I had people DMing me. I had lawyers who I don't know if they were lawyers or not. They were just like, hey Andy, like, did you like
people playing lawyers online?
Yeah, like let me get on the pod. I could talk to you about how much money these guys can sue the Warriors for. I'm like, dude, fuck off. What are we talking about here? Do you guys know how these teams work? You think Bob got in that room and told Kevin,
bro, they really think it's Friday night. They really thought it was Friday Night Lights. Like Bob was in there saying, can't give you the needle. You're gonna be good, boy. Like, come on, man. Like, relax.
Oh my God.
Like KD didn't have his own doctor. Like, come on, man. These dudes are. It's not West Texas football,
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. I'm sad to see. Well, today I was actually like on the move while I was running a bunch of errands, so I was watching the press conference off my phone. I was getting my haircut while the press conference going on. I was like, damn, that's crazy. And then I'm driving somewhere, and I'm like, damn. And then there was like never a real tear-jerker moment in the whole thing. I feel like he showed way more emotion when KD got hurt, or when Clay got hurt. So I feel like with the lack of emotion and I feel like this was already in the play. I feel like comparing it to the Last Dance documentary, this is the first domino. This is what Jerry Krause, this is the first domino to drop. And then now, he just doesn't have the balls to be like, all right, Draymond, we gotta figure something out. So it's gonna be funny, man.
It's an interesting take. Yeah.
It's the first domino, So
I think that's
scary times.
People have brought that up where it's like, and I think somebody asked Bob about that, where it's, with this offseason where Draymond might not be back or Clay might not be back, is that one of the reasons? And obviously he said no. He was like, so we've had tougher off seasons, but I can't imagine that wasn't something that was in his head, where it's like, we talk about the humanity stuff with him, where he's such a great friend to people. Maybe he's too good of a friend, where it's just like, look, he's just like, look, if I get a whiff of a notion that Steph and Clay and Draymond aren't going to play together, I'm gone. right? Like, you're right. Maybe that's something that played a role.
Do we think? So are you saying we think like Bob didn't want to make the tough calls? Because that's something that has been posed to me a couple of times, and like everyone's look, man, it's like pulling the Band-Aid. We're less than 12 hours from the Woj bomb or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's
crazy,
got theories, right? So
do we
think it's because he doesn't want to make the tough call?
You know who he needs to learn more from? He need to be like Greg. He need to be, he got to fire people on Zoom and turn it off.
I mean, look, the Waystar Warrico employs one person over 6'7" with brown hair. Warriors also. I mean, no one over 6'7" other than Looney on the roster. So, and he doesn't have like a nice head of brown hair like Greg or Bob. So,
we're toast.
There's a lot of similarities between my two guys.
I love this though. So I play in an open gym for some hoop, and then there's a bunch of Laker fans that are just there, right? And they're all talking shit, and then we're all just talking about our off season, and it's like I got. I don't know what the Warriors are going to do, but there's two things that can manage our expectations. One, absolutely nothing happens. We keep the same team. We try to run it back. We have the same problems. And, we've been here before, though, so we know how this is going to feel, which is inevitably what's going to happen. That's just Bay Area sports. But I think the second one is now that Bob's gone, it's kind of, whoever fills the new spot, they got to be like the Matt Ishbia vibe, and they got to shake it up, man. They got to, bring in like a Karl Anthony Towns, like a Patrick Beverly, bring in all these guys, man, because you're going to be critiqued off your first move. And if you make no moves and we're in the exact same position, then what was the point of Bob leaving?
Mike Dunleavy's first move is going to be converting Anthony Lamb to multi-year contract.
If that happens, this is on record. If that happens, I'll just accept that he's a part of the team. I'll root for him. I'll clap it up. Like I'll accept it, but I'm still in the denial phase right now that this guy's living my dream.
So I love don't even think about that, but that's just a great move because I think they're not bringing anyone new, but the Matt Ishbia stuff is interesting because now that Joe Lacob, maybe you can argue he has free reign, and when you talk about him kind of saying we're going to keep winning, we're going to be aggressive. Yeah, maybe he's just going to go out there and go, let's just get Karl Anthony Towns. Let's just trade 5, which, maybe Bob would have last year told him like, hey, like, probably not.
Bro, you're not going to be happy about this in a year's time.
And Bob probably would have been right, maybe, but Joe's kind of, I can do this without Bob. We're going to do this without Bob. I'm going to run the show. Kirk is going to run the show. And so maybe that's, and I'll be there. I'll be front and center. I'll say yes to them. I'll praise the move because you got to go and run a risk, right?
I was having a conversation with someone, and they were saying how, like, basically, we were just talking about bad draft picks, and then we were just talking about like the history of the NBA and bad draft picks, and then he brought up a good point. He was like, in the NBA, people draft on potential, and right now, it's like. You get drafted not because what you could do right now, but it's what you could do in 4 years. And right now, look at all the draft picks. We're drafting out potential, but when is it going to hit? We need a guy that can play now. Steph got 4 more years. Like, we got to go now, man. So I like the mock draft stuff. I don't even care. We just got to get. I got a list of 5 guys that we need to get, and we just got to get them, dude.
Yeah,
we got to get Kyle Anderson, Pat Bev. OG Anunoby, Cat. We're done.
Bro, is Kyle Anderson the number 1 Warrior killer like these days?
Dude,
like it's
amazing move.
It's Andrew Nemhard actually.
Bro, I've put him in so many trade machine moves. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, they need buckets. They might want a little Jordan Poole. Steve Kerr wants a point guard who doesn't turn it over. He wants Brad Wanamaker who can shoot over 27%.
We just need this guy. That's all.
Jordan.
We need Jordan, man. We need to step up. Man,
yeah, we'll see.
We are here in the offseason, boys. I love talking to you guys, man. This is it keeps me sane. I have nothing to do at night anymore.
Hey, you got the Giants, brother. You got the Giants.
Patrick Bailey, Casey Schmidt. Let's go.
Let's go.
We're back.
Sam's tuned out.
No, I'm actually enjoying the Giants a little bit. Like I'm hate watching, but they are fun
Honest
to
baseball
watch.
right there. Honest baseball.
Is it honest? I before we get you out of here, Elau, tell the people who ordered shirts what the update is.
All right, guys. Thank you for the support. The shirts are now in production. I just got a text from the warehouse people. They're like 1.5 weeks away from arriving, like just in packaging. So it'll be to you in like 2 weeks. They're gonna be sick. We're gonna make a few extra just so just in case you missed out. Maybe you could get it through Andy and Sam. I don't know. I'm gonna give it all to them and they'll figure it out. But we're gonna make a few extra ones, and come on.
Love. Let's
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man.
Thank you,
Anytime,
sir.
man. Let's go.
You have a great evening.
I'll try to, man.
All right. Let's get next. Let's get to Eugene here. Joe, what's up, man?
What's up, boys? I'm gonna be honest. I just tuned in. I only caught Aaron Lau exiting, so I have no idea what you guys talked about.
All good.
But Steve
You
Kerr needs
can-
to be
you
the
can-
GM.
You can guess what we talked about.
I mean, I could guess, and I think you'll agree. Steve Kerr needs to be a GM of the Warriors. I think it's a good move because it keeps the continuity. Like, he can deal with Draymond, he can be the Steph whisperer. Let's be honest, his tactics, his coaching, I feel like the league is catching up. I think him being a GM, I know he's had a bad record, right, with the Sun, or not bad, just mediocre. But I really think he can keep the Lacob fights, equal. I'm really worried about if Dunleavy comes in, it's going to be the Lacob show. If Kirk comes in, it's over. It's over, So I hope Steve Kerr's a GM. I would love your thoughts on that. See what you guys think about that.
I love the topic. We actually kind of danced around this one. I'll let Andy go first.
Yeah, but we didn't go into it like Eugene did. I think one thing you mentioned is his coaching is falling behind. His schemes, the way he's there's no. I mean, I top 3 coach in the NBA, right? I would always say, but I mean, do we just watch what Eric Spoelstra did to the Celtics? Did we just watch what he did to the Bucks and then the Knicks and then the Celtics? There is a large chasm between number 1 and number 3 and number 2 and number 3. And I do think you can argue that Steve hasn't really breathed any new life into anything offense. Like, it's just some of it's scheme, some of it's like, what do you expect him to do with Draymond and Looney? But some of it's also, can you do something different? Because I can create a defensive scheme that can guard your offense. Like, unless you have Steph going for 50, it's not that hard to defend.
And the development stuff. Like, I just refuse to believe Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga would be where they are if Eric Spoelstra was the coach. And they probably, like, look, the 2 timeline stuff was always obnoxious, particularly with how much the Warriors tried to, like, kind of publicly jack off about it and then, like, pretend they never said it. That was my favorite thing, where they're just like, well, we just want to win. What do you mean 2 timelines? We never said that. TK made that up. It's like, all right, bro. All right, nice. Blame TK,
Blame me.
Shout out, friend of the show. But what I was going to say is they undoubtedly, they haven't really developed shit. So
No, they have not.
And that's like at least some portion of coaching. Like, you got to do better than Anthony Lamb. So that's another thing. Even if Steve's not going to the front office, like, time to refresh the coaching staff once again,
Yes.
in some capacity. And I don't hate the idea. I'm intrigued by it, even though I'm, Steve's still just, he's a super valuable basketball mind. So it's like, you don't want to get rid of someone like that in any capacity. Like, that's
You don't. Sure. I don't want him to go to the Spurs. I think if you keep him in the GM role, it keeps him away from the Spurs. And what do you guys think about, is kind of outlandish, but putting Jama Mahala, is that how you say his name? I always forget.
Yeah.
Someone like him as a head coach, someone young who has a history of development, who will try out things. I'm just curious. I don't know if that's too crazy. That's just a thought that I've always had, and I love that pairing. So,
Gene, appreciate you, man. Keep moving. I'm intrigued, but I also, like, this is the one thing I keep thinking about. Steph's 35. He just played like an MVP. We're not going too experimental. just yet. You know what I'm saying?
They're
They're not the Boston Celtics ringless, just shitting on themselves every playoffs. They know how to get it done. We can't just, they deserve a little respect.
Kuminga and Moody, it's year 3. Jordan Poole, it's year 5.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you're running it back, I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? Shit, plays like he's year 1. Gotta get better. Those guys just gotta get better, right? It's year 3 for Kuminga. Although you can argue it's Kuminga's year 1 because dude doesn't get to play. Same with Moody. So, but they gotta get better. All right.
Let's get to our guy Tashion. What's up, man?
Oh man, it's been, not gonna lie, I was kind of sad to hear about the news about Bob Myers leaving, even though we knew as soon as that midway through the season article about the whole dysfunction of the whole organization, that's when everyone should have known that it was time for Bob to leave. And it's like, you could even argue that even in 2019 that he probably should have left, considering some of the internal turmoil that he was going through, apparently, especially the way that he was crying about KD. But I think we could do a whole bunch of reminiscing about the good days about Bob, about all throughout the summer as we try to figure out who is going to not only pick up the slack, but also who are we going to get in in the draft and maybe trade, etc. But I'm kind of curious about what you guys kind of think about some of the moves that previous GMs in Warriors history that you thought was going to go horribly wrong, but actually worked out. Mainly because I want to try to keep some relatively good perspective on what is to kind of look forward to, not only in the next 3 years with Steph last remaining years of his prime, but maybe in the last couple of years of this dynasty in general. So it's I'm curious what kind of moves surprised you, even though the Warriors were shit. Let's keep the we believe Warriors out of it, but let's kind of what kind of moves surprised you most importantly before the dynasty in general.
Well, let's start with Joe Lacob's first move. I didn't like the David Lee move. It just felt like, oh, great, we're gonna get a dude who gets a bunch of empty calories, that sort of thing. And they were, not only did David Lee help them get to the playoffs and kind of establish some form of identity and culture and just move in a positive direction, they were able to pivot off him as quickly as possible. Part of me was like, they're giving him all this money and now we're gonna have to watch him forever. And Joe Lacob showed me, no, when something better comes along, I'll move off of this. I don't care what he has to get paid. I'll get it done. I'll do it. And so for me, that was a big moment when I think about Lacob and his braggadocious ways. The dude's a little bit of a pivoter, more so. Your question was pre-Lacob, and I'm trying to think of my favorite move. The obvious one is trading Dunleavy and Troy Murphy for Al Harrington and Steven Jackson and We Believe. And I know you said don't say it, but I don't know how else to put it. Other than that, I would say when they made the move for Baron Davis, that's the only other time they've done something where I'm just okay, they got a dude in here who's better than anyone they have. Yes, he's a little injured and going through some bad times, but go for it,
And I think the interesting thing about what most of the goons are kind of talking about is either moving off of or letting Clay, Dre walk. And I don't necessarily agree with that line of thinking. I think, but this is definitely the year to decide which timeline you want to do specifically. And the reason why is mainly because the CBA freaking sucks. First off, CJ and freaking Grant Williams, who apparently has those weird forehead herpes from that one Star Trek character. God, oh my God, bro. He really just wanted to mess up not only the Warriors, but also mess up the level guys in the NBA. It's like, dog, do you not understand this messes up your money? So are you can't be that dumb, bro. Especially when you got your own contract negotiations. But that's a different point. But I'm always curious, like, why did the thing that surprised me in the lowest hanging fruit that the Warriors missed out on this year is like, why didn't they pick up on like Vogel or any other head coach level mind, other than maybe that they don't really want to be assisted to Kerr. But
Kenny Atkinson was supposed to be that guy. I mean, he's been that guy for a few years, but yeah, I mean, you're right.
But you also need. But the thing that made the Warriors coaching staff great was it was like a trifecta along with Jama and some of the development guys. Is that it was a trifecta with Kenny Atkinson with innovating the offense a little bit, Mike having some creative new ways to implement the defensive schemes with different types of zones in the last playoffs. And then you also had Kerr with his experience and being willing to evolve. And so I was always curious, is like, if you had those three different minds, it's like, why don't you just have those three different individuals to bounce off of each other? Because I think you had a winning formula there. So why don't you just try to recreate it with someone else? And maybe the answer to that question, unfortunately, might be there is no one else. But, you know, I was just curious that they didn't want to try it because it worked for them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's just, as annoying as this Warriors season was to me, this organization's been pretty stable with the same brain trust. And I'm just curious to see where they go from here. You know, whether it's coaching changes from, you know, like there's some big changes that are coming. Tachan, appreciate you, brother. Yeah, that's a lot, man. We should end with our guy Neil.
We got one more. Oh yes. Hey, is Neil coming on? We could talk some Succession.
Let's talk some Succession. Neil, turn the camera on, brother.
What's happening,
Let's
guys?
go.
I'm loving the Succession references. Just
if people are gonna be if people haven't seen it, maybe this is where you turn off the show. But
go watch it. Come back.
Not my problem, guys.
All right, what you got? What you got for us before I have a Succession?
It's been over 48 hours. We don't need to spoiler watch people.
Yeah, I mean, so quickly, like on the Bob Myers stuff. I don't know. I'm not. I actually wouldn't be too mad about Dunleavy. Like there's no. I don't think there's that much proof that he would be bad at it. I think my only concern is if Lacob kind of goes Jerry Jones and he starts like he made like a thing he made like a point in the press conference about like ownership and being involved in the team. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you can be involved, but like when you get a little too involved and you start making personnel decisions and you like hire your kid to be like a GM and then you're like doing like drafts from your yacht. I don't know. That's my only concern, I think, on the whole Lacob front. You know, going forward. But yeah, it sucks. It's a sad day. I mean, Bob is just a grounding force, mainstay, really underrated part of the organization. I feel like he never really got as much shine as like, obviously the main core guy, Steve Kerr, all those.
Kirk, Kent, Joe. Yeah,
yeah.
Agree.
Kirk. Yeah. Yeah.
The core four.
The core. Wait, so he said Joe said he has 4 sons. So it's Kirk. Who are the other 2? Are we missing 2 more?
Connor.
One of them's running for president. Yeah, he's gonna win Kentucky. Kentucky. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, that was the best series finale that I've ever watched of television. It was the perfect ending for everyone involved. It was everything that I wanted. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about losing because everyone lost. It was perfect, man. That was what I thought Succession was about. And they did it in 90 minutes. And I was locked in the whole time. I don't know.
It's my only Succession take that I'm going to disclose right now is I think they nail the interpersonal dynamics of working with family better than any show I've ever seen. Like, obviously, not everyone who works for family business works for a multi-bazillion-dollar conglomerate with all that sort of stuff. But like, just the complexities, like the issues people have, and that sort of stuff. Like, it's pretty good, and it's very hard for me to watch Joe Lacob but not think like Succession. Like, I'm sorry. Did he not just seem like Logan Roy up there the entire time?
One full Logan. Yeah.
We will win.
He's just screaming. He's just screaming on top.
Can't help it. He can't lose in the press conference.
Yeah. When Kirk screams, "I'm the eldest boy," when his draft ideas get vetoed, then that's when we know it's done for. No, the comparisons are apt for sure.
That line shook me. I was just like, yo, my, that was when he kind of reverted back to being a 10-year-old. Anyway, great show, I think. Shout out to Joe Lacob. Shout out to his we're gonna keep winning championships no matter what. It never gets old. That's the thing about Lacob, right? It never gets old. He's always gonna say the same shit. You know what he's gonna say.
Yep. All right, Neil, man. I appreciate you. Andy, you have a great evening. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Be out in pod form shortly.